Have you ever felt a sudden chill in a room that was perfectly warm just seconds before? Or seen a shadow move out of the corner of your eye that seemed to have a mind of its own? We live in a world that tries to convince us that everything can be explained by a spreadsheet, a lab report, or a logical sequence of events. But there is a hidden layer to our reality, a spiritual dimension that the modern world has tried to ban from our textbooks and our daily conversations. These aren't just ghost stories to tell around a campfire. These are documented, ancient, and terrifyingly real supernatural events that challenge the very fabric of what we think we know about the universe. From the high-ranking fallen beings of the ancient world to the modern-day accounts of spiritual warfare that doctors can't explain, we are peeling back the veil today. We are exploring every banned supernatural event through the lens of faith, explaining why they happened, why they are being covered up, and what they mean for your spiritual safety. Strap in, because once you see the world this way, there is no going back to feeling like you're alone in the room. Let us start with one of the most controversial and often silenced events in all of history, the Genesis 6 incursion. Many modern scholars try to brush this off as a metaphor or a poetic way of describing human bloodlines, but the ancient world knew better. The scriptures describe a moment when beings from the heavenly realms, the Watchers, decided to abandon their assigned stations and interfere directly with humanity. This wasn't just a minor infraction. It was a cosmic violation that produced the Nephilim, the giants of old. This event is essentially banned from mainstream pulpits because it sounds too much like science fiction, yet it explains why every ancient culture on Earth, from the Greeks with their titans to the Sumerians with their demigods, has the same mythology. These were supernatural events that changed the DNA of the planet. It was a spiritual corruption so deep that it required an atmospheric reset, which we know as the Great Flood. When we talk about these beings today, then we move to the eerie and terrifying event of the Witch of Endor. King Saul was desperate. He had lost his connection to the divine, and in his panic he sought out a medium. This is a banned event in the sense that many people don't want to admit that the spiritual realm can be accessed through forbidden means. Saul asked her to bring up the spirit of the prophet Samuel. Most people assume these mediums are just fakes or tricksters. This event serves as a massive warning about the reality of the occult. It proves that there is a doorway, but it is a doorway that leads to a place of no return. It's a reminder that just because something is supernatural doesn't mean it's good. Next, we have to talk about the strange and unsettling event of the Legion. Imagine walking through a graveyard and encountering a man so overcome by darkness that no chains could hold him. He lived among the tombs, crying out and causing himself harm. When the light of the world approached him, it wasn't just one influence he was dealing with. He spoke with a collective voice, saying, "My name is Legion, for we are many." This is a banned supernatural event in modern psychology because we want to label everything as a chemical imbalance. The entire herd immediately ran off a cliff. This event proves that spiritual entities have a physical impact on the material world. It shows us that there is a hierarchy in the unseen realm and that these forces are looking for a house to occupy. The transformation of that man, from a wild inhabitant of the tombs to a person sitting calmly and in his right mind, is the ultimate proof of the power of the light over the deepest darkness. Consider the supernatural event of the Transfiguration. Peter, James, and John were taken up a high mountain, and suddenly the veil was pulled back. The one they had been following was no longer just a man in a dusty robe. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as light. But even more shocking was the appearance of Moses and Elijah, men who had left the earthly plane centuries before. They were there, talking, conscious, and vibrant. This event is a massive blow to the idea that life ends at the horizon. It proves that there is a continuous existence in the spiritual realm, and that the heroes of faith are alive in a way we can barely comprehend. This is a banned event for those who want to keep faith as a set of moral rules. It reminds us that we are part of a cosmic family that spans across time and space. It shows that the spiritual realm is more real and more solid than the world we touch with our hands. Let's dive into the supernatural event of the writing on the wall. King Belshazzar was having a massive, arrogant feast, using the sacred vessels from the temple to toast his idols. Suddenly, a disembodied hand appeared and began writing on the plaster of the wall. The message was a terrifying divine audit. Mene, mene tekel, upharsin. You have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. This event is a banned warning for every world leader and every person who thinks they are untouchable. It proves that the heavens are watching, and that there is a point where the patience of the Spirit reaches a limit. The supernatural intervention wasn't just for show, it was a final sentence. That very night, the kingdom changed hands. It reminds us that the unseen realm has the final say over the boundaries of nations and the lives of men. We cannot ignore the strange event of the Star of Bethlehem. Modern astronomers try to explain it away as a planetary alignment or a supernova. The description in the ancient texts suggests something far more intentional. It wasn't just a light in the sky. It was a guide that moved and stood still over a specific location. This was a celestial supernatural event, a sign built into the clockwork of the universe to announce a sovereign arrival. This is banned knowledge because it suggests that the stars themselves are under a deliberate command. It tells us that the Creator uses the heavens as a billboard. The Magi, who were scholars of the unseen, recognized that this wasn't just a natural phenomenon. It was a bridge between the cosmic and the personal. It reminds us that we are being signaled from the great beyond, and those who are watching will see the signs. Then there is the supernatural event of the Valley of Dry Bones. The prophet Ezekiel was taken in the spirit to a valley filled with old, bleached bones. It was a place of total desolation. But then, a command was given. He had to speak to the bones. As he spoke, there was a noise, a rattling, and the bones came together. Sinews and flesh covered them. Finally, the breath of the Spirit entered them, and they stood up, a vast army. This is more than a metaphor for national restoration. It is a supernatural reveal of the power of the Word. It proves that the Spirit can bring structure and life out of absolute chaos and emptiness. This is an event banned by the realists, who say that when something is finished, it's finished. But the supernatural perspective says that nothing is truly over until the Creator says it's over. It's a message of hope for anyone who feels like their life is a valley of dry bones. Let's look at the supernatural event of the Apostle Peter's prison break. He was chained between two soldiers, behind iron gates, guarded by several squads. The next day, he was supposed to face a terrible fate. But in the middle of the night, a light shone in the cell, and a messenger from the heavenly realms appeared. The chains literally fell off his wrists. The gate opened of its own accord. Peter thought he was dreaming. It wasn't until he was standing on the street in the cold night air that he realized it was real. This is a banned event for those who believe that physical laws are absolute. It proves that the supernatural realm can override the physical at any moment. It shows that prayer creates a frequency that the messengers respond to. When the people were praying in the house, the atmosphere in the prison changed. It reminds us that no matter how many locks are on the door, the Spirit has the key. Consider the event of Philip and the Ethiopian official. After Philip shared the truth with him and they went down into the water for a ritual of transformation, something incredible happened. The text says that the Spirit of the Lord caught Philip away. He was instantly transported from one location to another, appearing miles away in a different city. This is a supernatural event that shatters our understanding of geography and travel. It's banned because it suggests that the Spirit can move a physical body across space in an instant. It proves that the mission of the heavens takes priority over the limitations of the flesh. It tells us that when we are in alignment with the divine purpose, the rules of the world become secondary. Now let's talk about a more frightening category: the supernatural events surrounding the Antichrist and the false prophet mentioned in the visions of the future. The scriptures warn of a strong delusion and signs and wonders that are meant to deceive. It describes fire coming down from heaven and statues that appear to breathe and speak. These are banned supernatural events because they warn us that not every miracle is from the light. There is a dark mirror of supernatural power. The warning is that in the end times, the enemy will use supernatural events to win the hearts of those who don't love the truth. This is a crucial warning for us today. We should not be sign seekers, but truth seekers. If we follow the wonder without checking the source, we are walking into a trap. This event warns us that the supernatural realm is a battlefield, and we need discernment to know which side is operating. Let's talk about the event of the opening of the eyes of Elisha's servant. The city was surrounded by an army with horses and chariots. Elisha prayed a simple prayer: "Lord, open his eyes that he may see." Suddenly, the servant saw the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around them. The army of the enemy was still there, but now he could see the supernatural protection that had been there all along. This is a banned perspective because the world wants us to focus on the visible threats. It wants us to be in a constant state of fear. But the supernatural truth is that he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. There are more with us than there are with them. This event proves that our physical eyes only see about 1% of the reality surrounding us. There is a spiritual guard standing by, and when we realize that, we can walk through any valley with peace. What about the supernatural event of the darkness that covered the earth for 3 hours during the greatest sacrifice in history? This wasn't an eclipse, the timing was all wrong for that. It was a cosmic mourning. The sun refused to shine while the light of the world was being extinguished in the flesh. This event was recorded not just in the sacred texts, but by secular historians of the time, who couldn't explain why the world went dark at noon. Along with this, there was a massive earthquake, and the veil in the temple, a curtain as thick as a man's hand, was torn from top to bottom. This was a supernatural unveiling. It signaled that the barrier between the divine and the human had been shattered. This is a banned event for those who want to keep the Creator at a distance. It proves that the great sacrifice had an immediate and overwhelming impact on the physical elements of the earth. We must also look at the event of the great catch of fish. After a long night of catching absolutely nothing, Peter and his friends were told to cast their nets on the other side. Suddenly, the nets were so full they began to break. This wasn't just luck. This was a supernatural manifestation of the Lord of the harvest. It proves that the Creator of the seas knows exactly where every single fish is located. This is a banned truth in the world of business and self-made success. It tells us that a single word from the Spirit can do more for our provision in a second than we can do with 20 years of grinding. It's a supernatural event that invites us to rely on a different economy, one based on obedience rather than just effort. Let's discuss the event of the quietening of the storm. A massive gale was threatening to sink the boat, and the experienced sailors were in a panic. The master was sleeping. When they woke him, he didn't grab a bucket to bail out the water. He didn't give orders to the men. He spoke directly to the wind and the waves. "Peace, be still." And there was a great calm instantly. The supernatural power here is the authority over the frequencies of nature. This is a banned concept for naturalists who think we are at the mercy of the elements. It proves that the world was built by His voice, and it still knows His voice. When the storms of life hit us, this supernatural event reminds us that we have access to the one who can speak to the chaos and make it settle. Consider the event of the stilling of the sun during the Battle of Gibeon. Joshua needed more time to finish the task, and he prayed for the sun to stand still. The text says the sun stayed in the midst of heaven and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day. This is one of the most widely debated and banned supernatural events in all of Scripture. Physicists say it's impossible because the Earth would have to stop rotating. But if the one who started the rotation decided to pause it, why would that be difficult? This event proves that the Creator is not a prisoner of His own laws. He is the lawgiver. It tells us that time itself is a tool in His hands. When you feel like you are running out of time, remember the sun over Gibeon. The supernatural realm is not bound by a ticking clock. Then we have the supernatural event of the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. The heat was so intense that the soldiers who threw them in were taken out by the flames. But when the king looked in, he didn't see 3 men burning. He saw 4 men walking around, unharmed, and he said the 4th looked like the Son of God. When they came out, they didn't even smell like smoke. This is a banned event for those who think that suffering always leads to destruction. It proves that there is a 4th man who meets us in the fire. The supernatural protection wasn't just about sparing their lives. It was about demonstrating that the fires of this world have no power over those whose spirits are anchored in the light. Let's look at the supernatural event of the bread from heaven. For 40 years, an entire nation was fed by a substance that appeared on the ground every morning. It wasn't agricultural. It was a gift. If they tried to hoard it, it rotted, except on the Sabbath. This was a continuous, generational supernatural event. It banned the idea of self-sufficiency. It taught that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. It proves that the Creator can sustain us in the desert, in the wilderness, and in the places where there are no grocery stores. It reminds us that our true source is not the earth, but the heavens. Next, we have the supernatural event of the curing of the leper. In the ancient world, leprosy was a sentence of isolation and slow decay. There was no cure, but with a single touch, a touch that was technically banned by the law, the skin became as clear as a child's. This was a supernatural restoration of the physical body. It shows that the light doesn't just save souls, It heals lives. This is a banned event for the cynics who think the Creator has forgotten the body. It reminds us that His desire is for us to be whole, spirit, soul, and body. Every time the supernatural power touched a broken person, it left them fixed. What about the supernatural event of the Ascension? After his final instructions, the Master was taken up in a cloud, right before their eyes. He didn't just disappear, he ascended. This was a physical body entering a different dimension of reality. This event is a banned concept for those who want to keep the divine trapped in the past. It proves that the head of the body is now seated in a position of ultimate authority over all realms. It tells us that the ceiling of our world is actually a floor to the next. It gives us a destination and a sense of cosmic perspective. We are not just earthbound creatures. We are citizens of a kingdom that is currently above our pay grade, but one day we will join. We should also consider the supernatural event of the gifts of the Spirit at Pentecost. A sound like a rushing mighty wind, tongues of fire appearing over their heads, and the ability to speak in languages they had never learned. This was a supernatural upgrade for the human spirit. It banned the idea of human limitation in spreading the message. It proves that the Spirit can empower ordinary people to do extraordinary things. This is a crucial event because it marks the beginning of the age of the Spirit, where supernatural power is not just for prophets in the desert, but for every believer in the city. It reminds us that we are not meant to do this life in our own strength. Then there is the supernatural event of the judgment of Ananias and Sapphira. They tried to lie to the Spirit about their contribution. The supernatural realm is not a playground. It is a place of absolute integrity, reminding them that the presence of the presence requires a life of honesty. It reminds us that our secret intentions are loud in the ears of the divine. Let's look at the supernatural event of the staff of Aaron that budded. To settle a dispute about leadership, 12 staffs were placed in the tabernacle overnight. The next morning, Aaron's staff hadn't just grown leaves. It had produced blossoms and ripe almonds. An old, dry piece of wood became a living, fruit-bearing branch in a matter of hours. This is a supernatural event that proves the sign of life. The Creator choices are confirmed by the presence of life and fruit. This is a banned event for those who believe in human-only leadership. It tells us that true authority is confirmed by the supernatural ability to bring life out of something that was dead. Consider the event of Elisha and the iron axe head. A young man was cutting wood, and the axe head fell into the water and sank. He was distressed because it was borrowed. Elisha threw a stick into the water, and the iron axe head swam. It defied the laws of density and gravity and floated to the surface. This is a small, personal, supernatural event, but it proves that the Creator cares about the details of our lives. It banned the idea that the divine is too busy for our small problems. It reminds us that the supernatural realm is available for the everyday as well as the epic. We must also touch on the supernatural event of the sunlight on the sundial of Ahaz. To give King Hezekiah a sign that he would be healed, the shadow on the sundial went backward 10 degrees. This was a localized, supernatural manipulation of light and time. It proves that the Creator can rewind the situation if He chooses. It's a banned thought for those who think their past is set in stone. The supernatural power that can move a shadow backward can also redeem the wasted years of our lives. It tells us that with the divine, there is always the possibility of a reset. Finally, we have the supernatural event of the new heavens and the new earth. The ultimate banned event, because it speaks of the total dissolution and remaking of our entire universe. It describes a place where there is no need for the sun because the light itself is the source. A place where there is no more pain, no more tears, and no more decay. This is the grand finale of supernatural intervention. It proves that the current state of the world is temporary. This event is banned by those who think this world is all we have. But the supernatural promise is that we are moving toward a reality that makes our current world look like a shadow. As you look at all these banned events, what is the common thread? It is that we are not living in a closed system. We are living in a wide-open spiritual landscape. These events are not glitches in the matrix. They are intentional proclamations of a higher reality. They were recorded to remind us that we have a Father in the heavens who is active, present, and powerful. The world wants you to stay in the natural box. It wants you to stay tired, afraid, and limited. But the supernatural events of history invite you to step out of that box. They invite you to realize that you are a spiritual being in a spiritual universe. Your prayers move the needle. Your faith accesses the throne. The banned events are your heritage. They are the proof that you serve the God of the impossible. So, the next time you feel that chill or see that shadow of fear, remember the chariots of fire on the mountain. Remember the fourth man in the furnace. Remember the empty tomb. The supernatural realm is not something to be feared by those who walk in the light. It is our home, our defense, and our future. Don't let the world ban the most exciting and powerful parts of your reality. Stay awake, stay spiritual, and keep your eyes on the unseen, for what is unseen is eternal. Walking in the supernatural is not about magic, it is about relationship with the one who made all things. Keep seeking the truth, keep believing in the miraculous, and we will continue to explore the mysteries of the kingdom together. Be blessed and walk in power.